Let's talk about something that comes up over and over again in design teams, but people rarely say it out loud. Designers often have a credibility problem, especially with engineers. You might have felt it yourself. You share your work and it gets brushed off as too blue sky, not realistic, just a mock up. Or worse, it gets completely ignored. Not because it's bad, but because it doesn't feel relevant to the real work of building the thing. And yeah, that's frustrating, especially when you know you've put serious thought into the experience. But here's the thing. Sometimes, from the outside, our work does look kind of vague. And if we're being honest, sometimes it is. Design often starts from aspiration. That's not a flaw, it's a strength. We're imagining what could be. But when the vision isn't grounded in how things actually work, when we're not speaking to the underlying structure of the product, it can come off as disconnected. That's where the credibility gap forms. The good news is it's fixable. And not just in a how to get engineers to respect you kind of way. This is about becoming a more powerful designer, one who understands what they're really shaping. Because here's something I've learned the hard way. If you want to be taken seriously in product work, you have to think beyond the surface. You have to think like a builder, not just a stylist. And that shift changes everything. It changes how you work with engineers, it changes the kinds of conversations you're invited to, and it changes the level of influence you have over the product as a whole. So let's unpack it. Why does this gap take place in the first place? A lot of it comes down to language and mental models. Engineers think in systems, in logic, in branching flows and data integrity, and edge cases and performance trade-offs. When they see a series of flat screens with no sense of logic or connection between them, it doesn't really register as real. It feels theoretical. And when they hear design language focused only on delight or vision, that doesn't really help. Again, that language isn't wrong, it just doesn't connect to their day-to-day reality. So here's the mindset shift that's helped me. Designers gain credibility when they start thinking more like engineers. Not by writing code, but by understanding the medium. If you were a sculptor, you'd study the texture and weight of stone or clay. If you were an architect, you'd learn how steel supports weight, how insulation works, how systems fit inside the walls. You wouldn't just sketch pretty facades, you'd learn what's underneath. Same thing with software. We need to understand the material. And the material is logic, data, and interactions. That doesn't mean you need to know how to write SQL or optimize APIs, but it does mean thinking about what data flows through this system. What happens when something fails? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? What's persistent and what's ephemeral? What are the edge cases? What state does this UI live in? Because those are the kind of questions engineers think about all day. When you start asking those questions too, they notice. And they start to see you less as someone handing off pictures and more as someone who's shaping the system with them. That's a powerful shift. So how do we get there? Here are a few strategies that I feel has worked for me quite well. First, think in flows and conditions, not just screens. Most prototypes show a happy path. Click A, go to B, smooth transitions, done. But real systems don't work like that. Real systems have ifs, thens, and whens. They have exceptions. They have loading states, permission logic, time delays, missing data. Start diagramming those flows. Even simple decision trees or condition maps go a long way. Second, start prototyping with tools that reflect logic, not just transitions. Figma is amazing for visuals, but tools like Airtable, V0, Framer, and other tools let you prototype things that work with actual data, even if it's fake. Suddenly, you're not showing a picture of an experience, you're showing a working model, and that gets attention. Third, model your data before your UI. Ask, what are the objects here? What do they relate to? What changes? Even sketching out a fake database in something like Notion or Airtable helps you design with more clarity, because structure drives interface, not the other way around. Fourth, Respect constraints. If you want engineers to take your work seriously, show that you take their world seriously. Acknowledge tech debt. Ask about API limitations. Ask what's expensive or brittle to implement. Designers who ignore those realities lose trust. Designers who respect them gain influence. And finally, adapt your language. Don't dumb things down, just translate. Talk about flows, logic, and conditions. Use terms like state, error handling, performance. When you speak even some of the language, it's easier to collaborate. Now here's the part that often gets overlooked. This shift doesn't just help you work better with engineers, it makes you a better designer. Because when you start understanding the logic behind what you're designing, and when you start to see the data relationships, the system flows, the failure states, you stop designing things that fall apart. You stop relying on visual polish to carry the weight. You make better decisions. You simplify complexity more effectively. You design with real-world durability in mind, not just theoretical elegance. And that has a massive impact on your craft, on your career, and on your confidence. Because you're no longer just decorating the front of the machine, you're shaping the machine itself. That's the shift I want more designers to make. Not becoming developers, but becoming system-aware, structure-literate, logic-capable partners in building software. Because that's what we're doing. We're not just making things look nice, we're building tools that people rely on. They need to be fast, clear, scalable, robust. And yeah, they need to be beautiful, but only once the fundamentals are in place. Credibility comes from showing that you get that you understand the difference between a concept and a system, that your work isn't just inspirational, it's operational. And when you start thinking that way, everything gets easier. Engineers respect you more. Your design gets built with fewer surprises. You get invited earlier into product conversations. You start shaping not just how things look, but how they work. And to me, that's the sweet spot. That's where the real influence lives. So if you're feeling that credibility gap, start closing it from your side. Learn the structure, understand the constraints, and speak the language. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to care. And when you do, you stop being just a designer, you become a builder too. If you find this content useful, please like and subscribe to the channel, and also share it with some of your colleagues who would find it useful too. I'd love to hear some feedback also, so feel free to reply in the comments. Does this resonate with you? Do you have a different take on it? What approaches have you took to improve your relationship and the credibility you have with designers, other engineers, product people, and so on?